On Saturday, tune into Yorkshire to see if that dreaded trip to the dentist is all it appears to be. Well, it definitely isn't when Beadle's about. Can these firemen post this car through a 3-foot hole? You bet they'll try. At 10 to 8, Timothy Dalton is back as James Bond.
You can see it about to happen, and then it happens.
See more unbelievable events which are being caught on camera. So don't be an April Fool, watch Yorkshire this Saturday night.
If you'd like to take the new 20-valve Audi A4 for a test drive, free phone 0800 99 8877.
Come on. Wow, who says crime doesn't pay?
The bigger they are, boss, the harder they fall.
I'm thinking of buying a house there.
On your salary, boss. And how do you intend to pay for it? With your Barclay card?
Well, funnily enough, sir, you could get up to £1,500 back from Barclay card with a new Barclays mortgage.
£1,500, eh? Well, Belgravia beckons, boss.
I think it's a good offer, sir.
Just leave the thinking to me. Aha. Well, Boff, I think we can safely say that this place will be on the market soon.
I wouldn't move if I were you, sir.
I have no intention of moving, Boff. You're the one who's been wittering on about mortgages. Right, let's get out of here.
Don't worry, sir. I've got the evidence. I'd better get back to base.
For more information, call 100 free phone Barclays.
Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop.
Some people feel machine washable delicates are better cared for by hand. But new Persil Finesse has a pH-neutral formula which gives a rich lather that cushions and gently refreshes delicate clothing in the machine, leaving your hands free to do whatever they like. New Persil Finesse. Hand wash care in your machine.
Who? Really?
What?
How?
When?
Never.
No way. Where?
Pardon? You what?
No.
Say again.
What? What?
What?
What?
What?
What?
You're watching Yorkshire television.
Make it clearer. All is revealed April the 10th. Caroline and Mike are expecting twins, but the babies are in trouble. A pioneering technique could save their lives.
I didn't quite realise quite how bad the odds were. So I found it quite upsetting at that stage.
Can surgery in the womb save the twins? Network First, Tuesday at 10:40 on Yorkshire.
In a change to our advertised programme tonight, at 10:40 we now have the film adventure Nightmare at Bitter Creek. Now on ITV, the latest world news from ITN with Trevor MacDonald.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor MacDonald.
Death in the snow. Airbus crash kills 59. Ministers rally Middle England with a promise of early tax cuts. Cantona escapes jail but is ordered to help the young. And the latest medical verdict on the safety of water births. Good evening. 59 candles were lit tonight for the passengers and crew of an Airbus A310, which crashed in a snowy field in Romania today. It happened only 3 minutes after the plane took off on a flight from Bucharest to Brussels. Nobody survived. One eyewitness reported seeing an explosion before the Airbus fell like a stone from the sky. ITN's Terry Lloyd reports from Bucharest.
The Airbus flown by the Romanian airline Tarom took off from Bucharest's international airport at 9 o'clock local time. but it had travelled just 12 miles when air traffic control lost contact with it. Eyewitnesses said it was labouring in the sky and flying abnormally low when an explosion blew off part of the tail section. A second explosion occurred as the plane hit the ground, disintegrating in flames. It came down in driving snow and rain close to the village of Balateshk. One of the first police officers on the scene said he did his best to help, but there were no survivors. Those who perished were mainly Belgians, including 2 diplomats based in Bucharest. The Airbus destined for Brussels was also carrying American, Spanish, Dutch, French and Romanian passengers. The 3 Americans included a husband and wife team on missionary work. 2 children were also amongst the dead. The national airline has been the target of recent bomb threats. 2 weeks ago, an aircraft on the same route was diverted away from Bucharest after a caller claimed there was a bomb on board. None was found, but Tarim immediately increased security. Whatever happened this morning gave the pilot no time to respond. Air traffic controllers received no mayday call. Tonight, police and soldiers sealed off the crash site, still sifting for clues which might help them establish if this was a bomb, mechanical or pilot error. They're hoping to find the flight deck recorders, the black boxes, which should tell them what the crew were talking about in the last few seconds. But much of the plane has been smashed into small pieces. Terry Lloyd, News at 10, Bucharest.
So, 2 lines of investigation tonight about what might have caused the crash of the Romanian Airbus. Was it a bomb, or was it a mechanical fault? Our science editor Lawrence McGinty weighs up the possibilities.
At Brussels Airport, they waited this morning for the arrival of a flight bringing relatives and friends. It never came. Instead, news of Romania's worst ever airline crash left them hopeless and distraught. Then, boarding flights for Bucharest arranged by the airline. Flights that would take them to the scene of their grief, a field in a distant Romanian village. It was just after takeoff from Bucharest to Brussels that one eyewitness says the Airbus exploded and caught fire at the rear. It plunged to the ground at Balotesti, a small village 13 miles north. But experts say such accounts of explosions must be treated cautiously.
People often get confused when they report this. The sight of an aircraft blowing up is a traumatic event, and the time tags attached to all the information in your brain sometimes get jumbled, and you imagine that the fire had taken place earlier than it had done.
Nevertheless, there is at least some indication of sabotage, not least a bomb scare on the same flight 2 weeks ago.
If it is a terrorist attack, it is more likely to come from the various mafia gangs that are vying for influence in Romania itself. In particular, all kinds of drug smuggling that goes on from the Caucasian republics of the former Soviet Union and indeed from the Middle East.
Investigators will also look at the plane itself. Last September, another Romanian Airbus narrowly avoided crashing over Paris when it went into a steep dive. But experts say planes made by Airbus are now so common, accidents are inevitable.
It has a whole range of aeroplanes. It has such a large number of aeroplanes in operation throughout the world that because the numbers are large, there are bound to be accidents from time to time.
And this accident shows once again that air crashes, though rare, often take many lives.
The Chancellor Kenneth Clarke has given the strongest hint yet that he is planning to cut taxes as soon as possible. He said an improving economy was bringing that possibility ever closer. It was the Conservatives' biggest weapon in a full-scale offensive launched today against the Labour Party. As our political editor Michael Brunson reports, the battle is on now to win the hearts and minds of the voters of Middle England.
Leading the latest Tory fight back, the Prime Minister came to Birmingham to find the Birmingham Post newspaper reporting an opinion poll putting Labour 42 points ahead in the city. Of course, the gap will be narrower come the general election, which will not, Mr Major said, come quickly.
We're not likely to have an election in the near future. This Parliament can go on until nearly the middle of 1997. We've got a great deal to do. We've done the hard things. We've done the unpopular things. We're now in a position where we can actually let the country see the fruits of the difficult decisions coming through in improved living standards for people.
Birmingham is but 13 miles from a spot called Meriden, said to be the actual centre of England. The people of Meriden, and more especially those reasonably well-off floating voters, which is what the phrase Middle England really means, certainly have their worries.
I am very wavery, very wavery. They've really got to pull something out of the bag if they want the Conservative to stay.
I think they're doing most things right, but it's this whole European situation which has obviously got them divided.
I think, generally speaking, the country is tired, and I think this comes from having a particular party in power for so long. I think their ideas are tired.
Back at the Tory Central Council in Birmingham, ministers set about trying to answer those worries. The Chancellor, for example, repeating last year's party conference pledge of tax cuts.
I pledged then that it was a question of when, not whether, we return to our tax-cutting agenda. And I repeat that pledge to the country again today.
But Mr Clark also deliberately raised fears about Labour and their promise of fair taxes.
What's fair about Labour's one proposal to hike the top rate of income tax to 50 pence in the pound for starters? So when Tony Blair talked about fairness, Middle England reached for your wallet.
But just before Labour's Rolling Rose rally in Derby tonight, their deputy leader replied to Mr Clark's watch your wallet attack.